T minus 1 minute. T minus 50 seconds. T minus 40 seconds. T minus 30 seconds. T minus 20 seconds. Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Right now on Truth Today, Islamic migration is the problem. We're going to be discussing what the West continues to face as it continues to allow unvetted Muslims into our nations. Also, we'll discuss the mosque shooting in San Diego. We'll talk about Trump once again delaying the hits on Iran and how we continue to see Jew hatred exploding out of New York City. That and much more right now on Truth Today. Well, good afternoon, folks. Good morning, depending on your time zone. Pastor Sharam Hadian here with you. Thank you for joining us here live in studio. Good to be back with you here in the studio. Last week, of course, I was on the road in Minnesota, Wisconsin speaking. And so it's always good to be back home with my family, back home with all of you. And thank you for taking the time. My apologies for the later start today. We had some things going on here, and so I had to push the start back just a little bit. And so I apologize about that. When you're doing live, sometimes things don't always work out in your life. So thank you all for also letting us know where you're joining us from on the live chat. We are, I'm monitoring that. And so you can just let us know where you're from. We have representation from a few different states here today. And also, if you have any questions in the live chat, let us know. We're going to be doing, if I have some time, I'll take some questions there again. So we had a great trip last week. Just thank you guys for praying for our trip there in Minnesota, Wisconsin. Continue to sound the alarm, continue to try to equip God's people. Some great meetings, some great presentations. And yeah, it was just a blessing to be there with everybody. And for those of you in those areas, thank you for coming out. Thank you for joining us. And it was wonderful. Just as a reminder, again, please visit our website at tilministry.com, tilministry.com. If you want to connect with our ministry, be looking for dates coming up in June and in July, and then in the fall. We're going to have a very, very busy fall coming up. And so be on the lookout for those dates as we will be posting that on our website. And of course, as always, if you're joining us on our YouTube platform or our Facebook platform. Facebook just is so frustrating because they just shadow ban us so badly, like so badly. It's not even a joke. Please go to this platform right there, rumble.com/SharamHadian, rumble.com/SharamHadian. Click the join button as we continue to build up our audience. And if you appreciate the content, please share it and just click like and share it. And it is a blessing to get that content out there to folks. So thank you guys for taking the time to do that on that platform. Also a reminder, if you're in the Dallas area, we are going to be, I'm going to be traveling to the, where is my poster for it? Oh, here we go. We're going to be traveling to Dallas for the May 31st premiere of The Great American Conflict, The Clash of the Cultures. I'll be there in the Dallas area in a couple of weekends. If you're in the area, you can go and get your tickets right here, again, at ticketspice.com if you're in the area. We did get word that this documentary now is on the Salem Network. And on Thursday's show, I'll have some information there on the Thursday show for how, if you want to go and watch the whole documentary, it is available on Salem. Now, you do have to sign up, and I think that there's a membership for Salem. That it has nothing to do with our ministry. That's just where they put the platform. But I think that you can sign up for the Salem Network. You get access to, I think, all their movies. I'm not really sure how much it is. So you can decide if you'd like to do that, and we'll give some information on Thursday show on that. But please remember that we will see if it will be coming out. We're going to be able to get access to it either on flash drive or on DVD if they will let us do that. So I'm still working with the producers on that front there. Today's show, we're going to be discussing the problem that the West has and the problem that that society has had for 1,400 years. And that is when society allows Islamic migration, predominantly unvetted, unchecked, and with no parameters and no goal of assimilation, it creates the mess that the world is in today. So much of the world's problems, I'm not saying all the world's problems, because obviously we know as believers that the challenges of the world are due to sin, the sin nature, the fallen. We're in a fallen world. But this ideology and their agenda for moving into Western nations, and then Western nations welcoming them with no checks and balances, with no call for assimilation, and no punishment for when there is not assimilation to the society, to the laws of that society, particularly Western values or Judeo-Christian values, you have a massive problem. And I think that given, we'll talk about here just in a minute, the shootings that happened in San Diego, and we're still learning more about these two teenagers that carried out this attack. There's, of course, sympathy for anybody that is killed. And I've said this before, there's a grieving nature when Muslims are killed, because as Christians, and as one who came out of Islam, I know that when a Muslim is killed or dies apart from Christ, they are facing an eternity in hell. That's the reality of the gospel. That's the reality of God's holiness and righteousness. And so my heart grieves in the sense that 3 Muslims were killed in this attack. And I think you're going to see that there may have been an element here that these were, supposedly they're going to try to blame right wingers, but I think that you're going to see there maybe was some sort of there was some sort of a maybe trans ideology. I don't know. They said that they found some evidence of neo-Nazi type of material. But again, this is also not surprising when you think about the fact that those people like Nick Fuentes on the right, who are Holocaust deniers, who are Jew haters, who are extolling Hitler, that it would lead to a brainwashing of young men, young people, to see the solution as violence. Again, we will continue to see this ramp up of violence. It's a lawless state that we're in. It's a lawless nation in the sense of the violence that we see, particularly from both the left, the far, the red of that axis, but also those who are pretending to be quote conservative, that are really woke. There is a left woke and there's a right woke, and both of them are justifying the violence, particularly against Jews, against Christians. But what I want to say is that our leadership is responsible for this type of violence. Just like the left promotes violence, just like the left communicates that it's justifiable to kill Trump or to, kill Jews or Zionists who support Israel. When we allow, again, if you're joining us late, when we allow unvetted Islamic migration and takeover, you're going to create the type of frustration and anger that then unfortunately people will act upon. And again, I don't know if we have all of the information yet about the motivation, the ideology, but Pukiel, you're correct. CARE will immediately start the blame, Islamophobia, that this is, Muslim hatred. They're already deeming it as a hate crime. And yet, we see the systematic attack on Jews, as I'm going to talk about here today, in places like New York City. We've seen an over 200% uptick in anti-Semitic attacks, and yet most of the media is silent on that front. So you have selective outrage, because when Christian churches are targeted, it's very little. When the Iranians are massacred, nothing. But if it's anything to do with either Jews or, quote, Christians, right wing, you'll see, mass information out there to what's going on. And, the shooting here that, I don't know if I have even a headline for that one, but this is supposed to be these two alleged shooters, Kane Clark, 17 years old, and Caleb Velasquez, 18 years old, according to the New York Post. Clark had been on a wrestling team, and I'm not sure right now, they're not really reporting much on the other kid. Apparently, the mother of one of them had called police a couple hours before, saying that her son was missing and suicidal, and that several of her guns were missing, according to the police chief over there in San Diego. But there is an environment that is being created. We saw the Bondi attacks in Australia. Very little media coverage past 24, 48 hours to the fact that, you have Muslims killing Jews, Muslims killing Christians. By the way, very little media coverage of the Muslims killing Christians every single day. Muslims around the world killing Christians, burning churches, vandalizing, raping, torturing, beheading Christians. But this type of stuff happens, and now it's going to get blown up everywhere, and it's going to be all over the news. And again, it's the tragedy is always there because somebody dies, and in this case, Muslims died. 3 Muslims died who don't know Christ, and for that reason, that's grieving. For that reason, somebody not being able to have any hope of salvation, as Muslims do not, there is a grieving process there in the sense of like, that's sad. And that's sad that, when I just came back from Minnesota, the last event that I had, one of the things that I was emphasizing was, again, why we need to share the gospel with Muslims. Why we need to stop placating to them, why we need to stop opining this common word movement and this, well, we have so much in common and we worship the same God, and interfaithism and multi-faithism. We need to boldly share the gospel with them, because if a Muslim were to die today, I said this Saturday night before the shooting on Sunday, if Muslims were to die today without the hope of Christ, they're going to hell. Just like I would have been going to hell if I had died without the hope of Christ, without salvation in Christ alone. And for that reason, it's sad. But what's the environment that is creating this type of rhetoric or this type of action? Well, first of all, again, the red-green axis continues to foment violence. And I've said, and I don't know if there's any element with these two to any kind of trans ideology. I had seen something in one of the pictures initially that maybe one of them was kind of a little bit on the trans side. But this is by the way, and thank you, Dawn, for pointing this out. This is a mosque that has been connected to very, very fundamentalist, what we would say, what the media would say, radical Muslims. And that's a great point that 2 of the 9/11 hijackers attended that mosque. The imam praised the massacre on October 7th, for October 7th. So yes, so we have a mosque that is deeply troubling, the largest mosque in that region in San Diego, and you have then this attack. And this will be used to, again, elicit the sympathy, the Islamophobia charges. Meanwhile, there's just deadening silence on the other side of the equation. And the culprit here is the fact that this red and green axis is fomenting violence. And then you have the pink in the middle. That's the trans movement in the middle of that, fomenting violence, carrying out violence against their opponents, against anybody that they deem as a threat. And starting with Trump, obviously, and anybody that's, quote, MAGA. And then you have the enablement of this mass migration, mass forced takeover of areas that we've seen. And it's going to lead to people becoming really mad. Now, what you pray and hope is that it leads to proper action, proper uprising. And I want to show you a clip of what just happened in the UK, where there was a massive rally this past weekend that was called Unite the United Kingdom, led by Tommy Robinson, who has been an activist against the Islamic takeover of Western Europe, and particularly of the UK, of Great Britain. And the reason I'm playing this particular clip is interesting because he's going to talk about Iran. He's going to talk about the Iranian people and how they're fighting for freedom. But that's what you want to see. You want to see that type of uprising. You want to see that type of peaceful protest. You want to see that type of action, because you don't want it to get to the point where it becomes a civil war, which is Europe is on the cusp of that. You don't want to get to the point where the UK Prime Minister, you see, and here is my point on this red and green axis. The UK Prime Minister Starmer called the people, hundreds of thousands of Brits that were protesting against the forced invasion and takeover of their country by, again, unvetted Islamic immigration, Islamic migration, unvetted, telling us, don't worry, nothing is wrong, everything is good, everything will be fine. So hundreds of thousands of Brits came out, and Starmer called them thugs, called them racist, called them fascist. So the red and green is working together to facilitate this type of thing. They villainize us. And then when something like this mosque shooting happens and says, yeah, Jen, Steph, that's a great point, that immediately they call it a hate crime, because that's the narrative. And that's the narrative. Deem it a hate crime, deem it Islamophobia. It's because it's Muslims, before the whole story comes out. And now it makes us look bad again. It makes anybody that is calling out Islam legitimately and calling out this migration problem legitimately as you're a bigot, you're an Islamophobe, you're a xenophobe, you're a hater, blah, 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 you're a racist, blah, blah, blah. And that's the frustrating part of this, because I do think there's a bit of a wake-up call happening. There is a bit of a wake-up happening. Yeah, Pukiel, that's a great point. Yeah, the media in the UK downplayed it, you know, where there was only just a few thousand people. No, I saw the videos. I watched several videos of it, and you're right. It was hundreds of thousands of people there in the UK. So in a little bit, I'm going to talk about the root of this migration called hijra. This is, when I teach in my presentations, I will explain that Islam's migration is actually a doctrine, and it is part of their jihad. It is part of the hijra, is one of the mechanisms of jihad or warfare. Remember, that word again means warfare, in order to establish Islam against non-Muslims, against their enemies. And it is, if you've gotten a copy of Annie Cyrus's book, The Architecture of Jihad, you know that there's different forms of jihad. But the hijra, or this migration jihad, is one of the actual tactics of the green of the axis, the Islamic movement. Again, the red-green axis, if you look at the green and their ideology, hijra is their mechanism for this takeover through unvetted migration, unvetted, unassimilated migration. Because as I've covered, the hijra directly calls for their adherents, being Muslims, to not assimilate. To not assimilate. And the red, the globalist, socialist, Marxist, communists, have actually called for this migration replacement. That's what they call it. This has been a part, and again, I covered this in my presentation. This has been a part of what's called Agenda 2030, coming out of the United Nations. Initially, it was Agenda 2021, and then it turned to Agenda 2030, where they call for this migration replacement to Western societies that have low birth rates, like the UK, like France, like the United States, like Canada, like Australia, like New Zealand, like other countries in Western Europe, Japan. They have low birth rates. And therefore, we're going to bring this migration replacement, unvetted replacement, no checks and balances, no assimilation. And whatever happens, they're going to allow, including the rape culture that is in the West, particularly in Western Europe, the rape culture that is in Norway and Sweden and Germany and France and the UK and Sweden and Spain and Italy. I'm going to show you the clip. Do I have that clip? I think was from the Muslim that ran over people in Italy. I believe it was. Do I have that one? Yeah, there. Update: Modena car ramming attacker sent violent anti-Christian emails years before attack. I'll burn Jesus on the cross, he said. So this is an African Muslim, Salim El Khudri, the 31-year-old man who deliberately drove his car into pedestrians on May 16th, on Saturday. And I'll mention that in a minute. So this is a result of the migration failure, the lack of, and it's not a lack. What I'm trying to tell you is it's on purpose. It is intentional. The intentional allowing of this unvetted mass hordes of Islamic migrants coming into the West, who then are allowed to take over, given special privileges, given special accommodations. And this all goes back to Muhammad. So let me play this clip of Tommy Robinson. This was part of the rally, again, in the UK, where they were fighting for Great Britain and Great Britain values and British values. They're fighting for their very lives. And just like the Iranians right now are fighting for their Persian identity, their Iranian heritage over this demonic Islamic regime, so is our battle in the West. If anything that I shared on my recent trip is that what is going on in Iran and the message of the Iranian people to America and to the West would be, don't make the mistake that we made 47 years ago. Fight for your culture, fight for your country. Don't just bend over. Don't just give in. Don't just lay down. This is not going to end well for you. So Tommy Robinson is leading this massive rally that they had. Again, Unite the United Kingdom, it was called. But he takes a moment to speak positively about the Iranian people. So watch this here. Let's clip really quick. Let me just go and make sure I set this up. Is it at the beginning? Here we go. Watch this. Oh, what happened? Why didn't I have audio? Why am I not getting audio? 1 second. Let me refresh that.
We face today. You might lose your job. You might get called a racist. You might get condemned by your neighbours. That's the risk. And many people fear that in this country, right? So I want to take a minute now for everyone here to think about this. The biggest fighters that I've witnessed in our generation, I see so many of their flags flying here today. It's the people of Persia.
Yeah.
Okay? And I don't care about any criticism from our detractors who talk about other flags being at our demonstration. Okay? I want to recognise that those women and the men, but the women in Iran, they don't come out to protest worrying about losing their job. They come out knowing they're going to be executed, and still they come out.
Yeah.
Still they come out.
There you go.
They come out to stand against exactly what we're uniting against. A supremacist, tyrannical ideology which has enslaved them. So I want to take a minute now. The IRGC is not the Iranian people. The Iranian people are rich in culture and identity. And there's so many of them here today. We support them. We do not support a terrorist regime. I want to bring a flag up now. And I want every one of you to give it a round of applause to the people resisting tyranny, to the people fighting for freedom in Iran. Get that flag on the stage. Let me see a round of applause. Apparently the flag's been up. Let's have a round of applause for the fighters in Iran, yeah?
Yeah.
They're fighting, they're dying. Let's recognise them today. whilst their families can't get in contact with them. They're brave, they're fearless.
Yeah. And so, boy, I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. I can't tell you how much that means to Iranians to have Tommy Robinson during the Unite the United Kingdom rally to fight for their nation, how much that heartens us to see him recognizing the Iranian people and their struggle against their takeover of their nation. But here we have the West completely asleep and completely paralyzed by fear of not wanting to be labeled and called names. And meanwhile, this Islamic migration, again, if you're joining us late, this Islamic migration is the problem. They are taking us over. And Kieran family, you're exactly right on the comments. Just by birth rate alone, they're going to take us over. And I've said this again and again. The Western European birth rate is between 1.3 and 1.4. The Islamic birth rate in Europe is around 5 on average. Last year in France, right, over 43% of children born were Muslims. The majority of British schools now, if you're a non-Muslim, you are in the minority. The majority of schools in the UK have Muslim majorities in their schools because that's how many kids they're having. So, and then in the United States, it's not that much better. We're about 1.7 our birth rate, and the Muslim birth rate is between 3 and about 3.5. So you're looking at a takeover through immigration, through migration, and then through birth rate. So without even killing people, without even firing their guns, without even whatever, they're taking us over. And this has been the problem in the UK, right? The European cities that have seen their cities completely changed by Islam, taken over, not even recognizable anymore. Here's another graphic that shows by 2024, almost 2 million migrants have come into just the UK. Just the UK alone. Look at those numbers there. 625,000 Pakistanis and 254,000 Bangladeshis. Just there, you're at almost 900,000. And then Somalia, Turkey. Now, Iran, many of those Iranians that are there are the Persians. They're not for the regime. But look at those Islamic nations, right? Saudi Arabia, Algeria, Morocco, Yemen, Sudan, Lebanon, Libya, on and on and on. Almost 2 million in the United Kingdom alone. And this is the fundamental problem. Now, this all stems back to Muhammad. This all stems back to jihad. Here's a map, and I know it's a little hard to read the small, but if you look at number 1, you can look there and see on the green area to the bottom of that, it says Mecca. And then right above that, there's an area called Medina. Now, again, I cover this all the time in my presentations, and it's in our Battle for America DVD, where we talk about what's called, again, the Hijra. This is a doctrine. The word literally means migrate, migration. And it means that when Muhammad supposedly gets this revelation in Mecca in 610, by 622, about 12 years, he doesn't have very many converts. The majority of the converts to the so-called peaceful Islam were his family members. But as he marries the wealthy widow, as he's convinced that he is, who is, by the way, Catholic, according to Islamic tradition, as he is convinced now that he is indeed the final prophet, he then calls for this migration in mass to leave Mecca and go up north to this city called Yathrib, which then, as they took the city over and they routed the Jews, it was a predominantly Jewish community. They routed the Jews there. They ran the Jews out and they took it over. And then, according to Sirah al-Rasul, the autobiography of Muhammad, on the one day, they call it the Battle of Khaybar, which really wasn't much of a battle, but in that area, the Banu Qurayza was the tribe in that region that was brought in. They were taken. Their hands were tied behind their backs. They were brought into the town square, and according to the autobiography of Muhammad, between 600 to 900 Jews were beheaded that day in the town square, with Muhammad participating in those beheadings. Then he changes the name of the city to Medina. This is what they do systematically. This is the pattern of behavior, the takeover that is there. They come in and they take over, and as they take over, they either run people out or they start attacking. They start committing acts of violence. And so that's called the Hijra. And there's three components to the Hijra. One, the component of migrate. So one's the call to migrate to non-Muslim countries. And again, where does the red come in? Where the globalists on the red side are facilitating it through their migration replacement, through open borders, through open border policies, through no call for assimilation, through unvetted refugees, through creating conflicts, and then which then creates these refugees. They allow these people to come into the West. And as they do, the green takes over. So number one, migrate. Number two, populate. As we've already said, their population is dramatically higher, their birth rate. And then number three, and this is the part that people don't understand, is that there is no call to assimilate. They are called to actually segregate. And that's where you get the concept of these Sharia enclaves. That's where you get Islamic enclaves forming in the UK, in Western Europe, in Australia, New Zealand, in the United States, in Patterson, New Jersey, Dearborn, Michigan, Dearborn Heights, Hamtramck. You have St. Cloud, Minnesota. You have Bloomington, Minnesota. I was just there. You have then obviously what's going on in Texas with Sugar Land, with Houston. We're going to talk about Katy, Texas, down in the Houston area in a minute. Plano, East Plano, Richardson, Irving, the Dallas Metroplex area. All of this comes from unvetted Islamic migration, and our entire system has to change. Our entire system has to change if we're going to stop this. That's why my friend Andy Ogles, who is a member of Congress here in the state of Tennessee, has pushed for this assimilation bill. And again, I don't know if it's going to even have the votes to go anywhere, but the fact is that it is it is very much focused on forcing assimilation or getting out, forcing assimilation or removing people who will not assimilate. And it may be too late for the Brits. It may be too late for them. And Pookie, I did not see Bishop Zumba's at the rally, but I'm sure that was powerful. I missed that part of it. And the likes of what Andy Ogles is talking about is exactly the type of language and type of discussion needs to be had. We have a massive migration problem with Islam, and we got to deal with it harshly, strongly. But look at what happened with ICE. Look at how that all changed because people, we're being too mean. We're being too rough. Yes, are there mistakes that are made? Absolutely. But if we do not kick out and get rid of all of the criminal, illegal aliens that are in our nation, and then we see the frustration I was watching this hearing in the Congress, in the House side, where they were interviewing this Soros-backed, Soros-paid district attorney in Virginia that was cutting loose all these illegals who had committed heinous crimes, rape of a child, murder, drug trafficking, kidnapping. And they were being given suspended sentences, few months in prison, because of their immigration status, even though the guy was denying it, even though it was in their actual policy. It was in his office policy as a district attorney. If we do not get rid of this, then it will be a metastasized cancer that is taking over as we speak. So anyway, from the Hijra, going back to this map, you see that from the Hijra in 620, it actually was about 622. Then they fought all those battles. You can see right after that, look at their expansion in the black. That is their expansion in the black, the Battle of Badr, the Battle of Uhud, the Battle of the Trenches, like the expansion out of that, how they began to take over the Arabic Peninsula, how then they moved up into Persia. That's how Islam conquered Persia, because the majority in that map of the pink, the light pink and the darker pink was the Persian Empire up until 651. So very rapidly, it did not take them very long to amass by forced conversion, to amass the type of army, the type of wealth, to take over the Persian Empire, to take over Egypt, to go, and then remember by the 700s, they're into Western Europe. Today, they don't have to have invading armies. Today, we just let them in. We just let them in to our demise, to our destruction. And as we let them in, then you have this type of consequence. Look at this. Muslim Brotherhood tied operative Main al-Huda exposed. Deep bin Laden and al-Qaeda ties, now building Islamic city in Texas. This is in Katy, Texas, where they're building this 30-acre, $80 million, 30-acre Islamic mega compound in Katy, Texas, complete with mosque, K-12 school, university, housing, and commercial facilities, while positioning affiliated institutions with Texas taxpayer voucher funds. Again, through the vouchers. Same thing that we've been fighting here in Tennessee. These voucher programs are our demise. We're giving them money to fund these Islamic schools, and what the heck are we doing? It goes on to say this exemplifies the Brotherhood's documented strategy laid out in the 1982 The Project. Now, if you remember, a few weeks back, I covered this in one of my shows, Islamic War Plan Exposed, the Muslim Brotherhood and Marxist long game. I encourage you to go back and watch that show as we talked about the Muslim Brotherhood's, the 1982 document, The Project. But this is in rural Katy, Texas, northwest of Houston. Remember, Houston is the second largest Muslim population in America. It is not far-fetched to think that Houston would also get a Muslim mayor soon, and that they're going to also elevate the Islamic call of prayer if patriots, conservatives, Christians do not stand up. They are not assimilating, they're segregating, and this is all, again, part of the Hijra. This is migration jihad, the best way to understand it. It is part of their warfare. Muhammad called for it. Muhammad called for this. Going back to that attack in, going back to this, here's some information on that. New revelations again show that Salim al-Qudri, 31-year-old man who deliberately drove his car into pedestrians in central Medina, had expressed extreme anti-Christian hatred years before the attack. according to documents obtained by Italian newspaper El Tempo, 2021, sent a series of angry emails to the University of Modena and Reggio Emilia. In one, he wrote, you Christian bastards, you and your son Jesus on the cross, I'll burn him. So on May 16th, plowed his car at high speed into a group of pedestrians, injuring 8 people, 4 critically. After crashing, he exited the vehicle and stabbed at least 1 man before being subdued by brave citizens. And then the mentality is, we don't know what happened. We don't know why they do what they do. And yes, Kay McManus, exactly right. The Islamification of Texas is the greatest issue Texas is facing. Absolutely. Absolutely. And so this is where we need to wake up and really, really look at what we're doing. And we need to start putting more pressure on our elected officials to begin to look at this. Now, meanwhile, in New York City, as their population has swelled over 1 million, as they've elected a Muslim mayor, as I said, you've seen these unbelievable anti-Semitic attacks. And let me show you this video of somebody posted this. This was last week, where Muslims were praying outside a Jewish school. And yeah, here it is. Let me play this here real quick. We're gonna go back up here and tell me if this is not intentional. Watch this type of intimidation in New York City against Jews. Nobody reports on this.
This is the front of the Jewish school, high school. Do you see what's happening here? Because there's no mosque in the area to do this in front of. You have to do it in front of a Jewish school. Nice, right? This is the front of the...
So, you know, someone would say, oh, well, they didn't have a mosque to pray with. Oh, wait, there's a mosque about 3 blocks down. If you can't look at that and see total intimidation and the fact that they're actually praying to their demonic false god towards the school, and then we wonder why it is what it is, and then you got to scratch your head and go, why on earth would 1/3 of Mamdani's votes have come from the Jewish community in New York City? About 1/3 of his votes came from the liberal Jews in New York City. What fools are they? What fools are they? This is what you get. This is the type of stuff you get. And so this type of intimidation, this type of demonstration, and again, in my opinion, letting them in is the problem. Letting them in is the problem. You have to stop letting them in. You have to stop allowing, or if you let them in, you better vet and you better have strict guidelines. Because if somebody shows that they are not going to assimilate to our laws, they start calling for Sharia over our Constitution, then the bottom line is they need to be removed and kicked out. Now, we can help. We can raise up some money and we can put them on a plane and ship them back to the Middle East, to wherever they come from. But by the way, the Iranian people don't want that. They want to come to the West. We, as my dad, we wanted to come to the West to live by Western values, to live by the individual rights and the freedoms that are here in the West. My dad didn't want us to be governed by Islam, seeing what was coming to Iran. And then you get this type of thing. Look at this headline. Where'd it go? Any surprise here? Oh, I'm sorry. That was one of the Kane Clark. But you see how he kind of looks a little bit feminine? I don't know. Maybe not. I saw some stuff that maybe there was some connection to that. But of course they, want to blame this. But I want to show you, is it this one here? Yeah, here we go. U.S. Air Force officer converts to Islam, accused of becoming spy for Islamic Republic of Iran. Here we go again. What a surprise. What a surprise as we allow this to happen. Meanwhile, with Iran, it's we were loaded. The president says we were loaded to the brim. Another big hit. We were about to go, but then apparently the Qataris and the Arab Emirates and the Saudis called them and said, no, don't go, don't bomb, don't start. We got peace. We got a deal. At what point do we just think that we're just crazy? At what point do we understand this is hudna? This is deception and lie of treaty, of buying time, of pushing the truce until they reload and they continue to kill the Iranian people. I keep telling this to people. There is no deal to be had. None. All you people out there who support the president on this issue, there is no deal to be had. None whatsoever. And none of the Iranian people will ever accept it. And as you saw from Tommy Robinson, where he lifted up the picture of Reza Pahlavi, that's the only person the Iranian people will accept as a transitional leader. That's it. They will never lay down, stop fighting, or stop willing to die until they have a free Iran. But, we're locked and loaded. Trump looks like a parent that keeps threatening. If you don't clean your room, if you don't stop fighting with your brother and sister, I'm going to spank you. And we never do. There's not the consequence. And so, Mr. President, the majority of the Iranian people are like, please start the bombing again. Please finish the job. If you're going to get involved, finish the job. And this is this game that we go around every minute, multiple times a day. And why we would trust the Arab Emirates, why we would trust Qatar, the largest financer of the Muslim Brotherhood, pouring $6 billion into propaganda into our universities. And then, of course, there's not only the left, then there's the interfaith Christians. Oh, I forgot to mention the interfaith Christians. The interfaith Christians that come and protest our events and protest people like me to stop me from telling the truth about Islam. They're the ones, we want to welcome all the refugees. We want to be welcoming. We love them. Bring them in. The Catholic Church, the evangelicals, the mainline denominations, all of these so-called Christian charities that are getting billions of dollars of tax dollars to bring in unvetted refugees through the refugee resettlement program. And guess what? Guess what? They will... You think those people are ever going to come out and admit when they're wrong? You think they're ever going to come out and say, oops, we made a huge mistake, like by the way, the Iranian people are doing today. Oops, we made a huge mistake 47 years ago when we didn't pay attention to what was in our country, for what was infiltrating our country. All these Arabs coming into Iran, all the communist Marxists that were coming into Iran. Oops, we didn't pay attention. And now 47 years later, they're still paying the price, and they paid a hefty price with hundreds of thousands of lives. And the message to America is, you're not paying attention. How foolish are we that we're giving into this Islamic migration? And Yeah, Sabbath 1974. Great point about Christchurch, New Zealand. By the end of the day, Prime Minister, they were wearing hijabs. They were covering themselves. And so the enemy uses this type of thing to then set us back. Watch and see how a bunch of people who were like, Islam is bad, like Megyn Kelly, right? I played the clip last week, flip-flopping in 5 months. Islam is bad to, oh, no, Islam is good. It's the Jews that are the bad. It's the Christians who are needing to have an enemy, and they have to make an enemy out of Islam. They're bad. And watch how they flip the narrative here and blame Christians and blame the Jews for this attack in San Diego. Just watch. I agree with you 100%. 100%. But the biggest problem in the church that we're facing is these interfaith, multi-faith deceivers that are poisoning the gospel, poisoning Christianity, and also deceiving Muslims who are not getting saved, not coming to Christ because there's no evangelism. There's no gospel being presented to them. I was in Minnesota at our event on Saturday. Somebody said, yeah, there was a church in Minnesota where this pastor was talking about how he was working with 5 imams locally in the community to learn how the church could serve them, not minister to them, not share the gospel, how to serve them, i.e. give them stuff, free things. And he said, and they told me that this pastor then bragged about how, oh yeah, and I was so grateful that these 5 imams prayed over me. What kind of pastor would allow 5 imams worshiping Satan, worshiping an antichrist spirit that is Allah? What kind of pastor filled with the Holy Spirit would allow them to pray over him? This is the problem. And it's that type of church that says, oh, let's welcome all the refugees in. Let's welcome all these immigrants in, like in Minnesota with all the Somalis. And then what do we see? Takeover, fraud, stealing our resources, politicians bowing down to them. And, screw the local people. Forget the local people. Who cares about the millions of people that live in the state? No, we're going to cater to a couple 100,000 Muslims because they're the heart of the society in Minnesota. And the left is just to their demise, truly being useful idiots, using the communist term, truly being dhimmis, using the Islamic term, to their demise, to our demise. And this is why, again, I want to encourage you, please pray for the premiere of the Great American Conflict, the Clash of Cultures, where we talk about these issues in there, and that it would be a wake-up call for America. And again, if you happen to be in the Dallas area for May 31st, go to ticketspice.com, get your ticket there to come and join us at the premiere. And then after that, on Thursday, I will have information for you on Salem, on the Salem Network. If anybody's already subscribed to the Salem Network, you can go watch it there for free now. It's already there. But if you're not, you can subscribe to the Salem Network and SALEM, and I'll have that information for you on Thursday. Praise God that you guys are alert and awake. And praise God that there are some that are alert and awake. So please pray for Iran, folks. Please pray that the president will not be confused or deceived by the rhetoric of our allies, especially the Qataris, who are not our allies. Please pray that Israel would finish the job, that hopefully America will finish doing what they're supposed to be doing, and that Trump will not stop Israel from doing what it needs to do. Please pray. And pray, obviously, and I would say this, pray for the victims of those 3 Muslims that were killed, and pray that through this opportunity, somehow, Christ would be manifested to them, the Holy Spirit would manifest to them, and that they would come to know Jesus. But unless someone tells them, how are they to know? Unless someone gives them the good news, how are they to know? So pray that this would be a wake-up call to some of the churches there in San Diego, and that this would not be an opportunity to say, oh, let's hold hands with the Muslims. We all worship the same God. That kind of nonsense. And please pray that we have enough leaders like an Andy Ogles who will stand up and say, no, we're done. Enough is enough. We're not catering to this Islamic migration unvetted anymore. Unvetted and unassimilated anymore. We're going to demand assimilation. We're going to demand that you obey our laws. We will not give you public accommodation of Sharia. We will not allow Sharia to take over our nation. Please pray for that type of courage and leadership in our nation. So thank you guys so much. God bless you guys. I'll be back with you Thursday night, Lord willing, 8 o'clock Eastern right here. Again, just visit our website. A reminder again, if you're not on Rumble, please click that red button there. It says join on the page. Join our page, share it. And then as always, if you want to support this ministry, tilministry.com/donate, tilministry.com/donate, where you can make a one-time secure donation online. You can mail in a check to our P.O. box, or you can choose to join our monthly supporters, our Gideon army of 300 who pray for us and support us on a monthly basis. We love and bless each and every one of you. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your prayers. And again, that allows us to go. Like this trip again in Minnesota that I went to, we covered all our expenses. Nothing was paid to us. It was all by donation. And so we go by faith. And your support allows us to do these shows. Your support allows us to keep going as one of the ministries that we're trying to be on the front lines. We're trying to be on the tip of the spear. We don't have a big following. That's okay. I'm okay with whoever God wants to bring. But please pray about whether the Lord would have you support us or not. And if he doesn't, then don't. But if he does, then please support us. God bless you guys. Thank you so much for joining us. Again, I'll be back with you Thursday night, Lord willing, right here on Truth Today. Have a great rest of your day. Pastor Shahram Hadian signing off.